How would you like to speak with the passion of Saul Hicks? Wasn't he wonderful yesterday? Yeah. Or how about the elegance of Regina Bedoya? I love you, sweetie. Our next speaker, Ben Decker, is going to show us what counts in communications. And he's going to teach us how to make an impact in any situation, whether it's speaking main platform or in a client meeting. Ben's ideas will not only enhance the content of what we say, but how we say it. Ben spends most of his time with CEOs of major corporations. We are so fortunate to have him here sharing with us today. Please help me welcome Ben Decker.
Good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here at MDRT Experience this afternoon. We're going to be talking about a subject of importance to all of us, communications. As you know, we all have habits. Habits that help us, habits that hinder us. We also have habits of perception, of how we see others and how we see ourselves. We're going to talk about inner and outer perceptions and how we can alter them. We're also going to be talking about how to put ideas together in a faster and more effective way. In the process, I'm going to be giving you specific options and tools you can use to become more effective communicators. The content of my presentation is as follows. 1, individual communications or building trust in the messenger. 2, message building and presenting a strong point of view. And then 3, how to build skills and confidence through feedback techniques. Also, in order to be effective, you must have the undivided attention of the person and persons you're talking to. To communicate effectively, you must get people to listen. For example, I don't think you're listening to me right now. You're watching me read this speech and your mind is elsewhere. You're wondering, why is this guy here particularly to talk about communications, right? So let's start over and start this over again, because communicating is a contact sport. You must make contact with your audience and how you come across. That wasn't connecting with the audience. In fact, I saw some of the scared faces out there wondering, am I going to be here for the next 20 minutes listening to this? Some of you started to walk out the sides a little bit there. I think I even heard Angry Birds over here. Somebody started to play. We need to connect with our audience. And what does that say? For example, that was actually a prepared talk that I just gave you. And I did say I would cover 3 things. By a show of hands, does anyone remember all 3 things that I said I would cover? Show of hands, anybody? I don't see any hands. Okay, now how about just 2? 2 out of the 3 things that I said I'd cover. Does anybody remember 2 of them? No hand, a couple hands, thank you, good. 1 thing, does anybody remember 1 thing? Okay, I see maybe a half a dozen hands out of the 1,000 here. What does that say about the facts and figures that we put so much time together to give? Regina said it yesterday. We spend so much time creating our portfolio and analysis and data, but if we don't connect with our audience, there's no reason to be there. You're in a relationship business, and to start a relationship, you have to have trust. So let's start there with trust. Francis Fukuyama, he's a political economist, and he did a study. In fact, he wrote a book in 1995 called Trust. He did a longitudinal study with a simple question saying, do you trust most people? In 1960, 58% said yes, I trust most people. And then he asked the same question again in 1993. And of course, it went down, 37%. My question for you today, right here, right now, is what is it today? In 2012, where in the financial industry, trust is at its lowest. And your goal as advisors is to engender trust in your relationships with your clients. But to do that, you got to know what they're looking for when it comes to trust. So what is it that they are looking for? What you see here are the 3 V's. Albert Mehrabian is a professor out of UCLA, and he looked at what people look to when it comes to trust and believability. In these numbers, verbal is the content of what you share. Vocal is the sound of your voice as you hear my voice. And then visual is what they see of you. Not your slides, but of you. I want you to weigh them of what you think counts most in communications. Just weigh them what you think is the most important when it comes to trust and believability. Let's do a quick survey here by a show of hands. If you had verbal, the content, the words you say as most important, raise your hand if you think the words you say are most important. Okay, there's a few hands out there. Now if you have vocal as most important, raise your hand if you think vocal is most important with trust and believability. Okay, more hands there. Now to make sure you're all here and awake, visual. If you think visual is most, okay, there's the majority of you. Of course, smart group. This is the MDRT. Before I reveal the answers to you, I want to do a quick survey. A quick exercise. Make a circle with your hand and then put it out in front of you. Put it out to the side. Put it above your head. And then put it onto your chin. Chin. I'm saying chin, yet I see a lot of cheeks out there. I'm saying chin, but I see a lot of cheeks. Take a look at the numbers. Now first, let me tell you what this does not mean. This does not mean that content, the words I'm sharing, count for only 7%. What these numbers mean, what Mehrabian based his research on, is in an inconsistent message, you will mostly believe what you see and what you hear. But the problem is, I'm showing you cheek, but I'm saying chin. That is an inconsistent message. And this is an example of what we do all the time in business. We say one thing, yet we sound or we look a different way. So we need to be aware of what we're doing with our communications. We need to own our experience and how we come across. I'm going to show you an example of someone that is a master communicator. This is Steve Jobs introducing a product. Before I show you Steve Jobs, let me show you first how and why he does that. Because people, it can't just be the words you share. It's got to be, there's an emotion piece. What you sell, what you service is an emotional buy. And I'm sure you've heard this. People buy an emotion and justify with fact. You need to connect emotionally with your audience. And this is, now I want to show you that clip of Steve Jobs because notice what he does. He emotes. He gets people to feel something when he rolls out a product. Take a look at this.
3 things. A widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device. And we are calling it iPhone. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
The most successful MDRT members are successful because they know the experience that they create. And that's what we have to do in the audience. So how do we do it? We need to build trust in the messenger. And that's just knowing how we come across. And don't think of this as presentation skills, as big audiences as I'm here right now. But this ties into the one-on-one. The 1 to 5 that you do so often. The 1 to 100 that you also do. It applies to everything. So we're going to build trust in the messenger and start with the big 6. Now the big 6 are, it's a term we use within Decker, of behaviors to be aware of. Of all this list, we're not going to cover them all today, but I want you to look through the list and think about your own habits. Because in all of these, we have habits. And we have different habits. I have different habits than you with each one of these. I want to give a quick example of one based on habits, more around gestures with this. And again, keep in mind, these habits either help us or they hinder us in how we come across. And it's regarding gestures, because there's a dozen things that we can do with our hands. I might be washing my hands with you, and it's going to become distracting. I love how Sandro just did something with his watch. Very similar, what we can do can be distracting. Now, this gentleman, in a lot of our programs, we go through videotaping and private coaching. He goes to his private coaching, and his habit was a fig leaf as you stand in front of people, covering vulnerable areas, as they say. As he continued to talk, first time ever seeing himself on video, he gave himself the title of a fig leaf flasher. Because as he continued to talk, he just continued to flash. And if the camera can zoom back a little bit to see that the hands are just continuing to be a distraction, and as an audience you're thinking, what is he doing? Doesn't he realize what he's doing? No idea. But again, that's a habit. I doubt many of you are fig leaf flashers, but my guess is you have your own habit around some of these other big six. So be thinking through each of these of what is it you're doing with your eyes? Around energy. And this is one area we focus on a lot, because with the thousands of executives we work with, energy can tend to go down. We got to work on energy. Show the passion. What you sell is so important, and I actually truly believe in what you do. I want you to be successful. We got to show that passion about what we're describing. And then lastly, of course, is credibility. Be aware of what can be a distraction or take away from our experience that we give. I'm going to show one more clip here. Now, if I told you that a gentleman that is going to share information about life expectancy and size of family with a 40-year breakdown of data, is that pretty exciting on a Friday afternoon? Do you want to hear about this? It doesn't sound usually too exciting. I'm going to show you a clip of Hans Rosling. And this is him speaking at a TED conference. What he is, he's a consultant to the World Health Organization. He's a doctor. He's a statistician. As you watch this clip, be thinking about what this experience could have been with all of that setup of description. Take a look at this.
I put fertility rate here, number of children per woman, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to about 8 children per woman. We have very good data since 1962, 1960 about, on the size of families in all countries. The error margin is narrow. Here I put life expectancy at birth, from 30 years in some countries up to about 70 years. And 1962, there was really a group of countries here that was industrialized countries, and they had small families and long lives. And these were the developing countries. They had large families and they had relatively short lives. Now what has happened since 1962? We want to see the change. Are the students right? It's still two types of countries? Or have these developing countries got smaller families and they live here? Or have they got longer lives and live up there? Let's see. We stop the world. And this is all UN statistic that has been available. Here we go. Can you see there? It's China. They're moving against better health. They are improving there. All the green Latin American countries, they are moving towards smaller families. The yellow ones here are the Arabic countries, and they get larger families, but longer life, but not larger families. The Africans are the green down here. They still remain here. This is India. Indonesia is moving on pretty fast. And in the 80s here, you have Bangladesh still among the African countries there, but now Bangladesh, it's a miracle that happens in the 80s. The imams start to promote family planning, and they move up into that corner. And in 90s, we have a terrible HIV epidemic that takes down the life expectancy of the African countries, and all the rest of the world moves up into the corner where we have long lives and small family, and we have a completely new world.
Now that's high energy. He's a gentleman that knows his habits and is aware of the experience that he puts forward. Think about what that could have been, and that's the point. But it's not all about behavior. It's also content. So we need to build trust in the message also. You have to have direction in where you're going with your content. As we set up the message, we got to start to think differently about where we go with this. And I'm going to just show you a tool. This is part of our Decker grid system. It's the first part of it, but it's by far the most important. These are the cornerstones, and it shapes where you go with your message. And I'm going to start right in the middle, around listeners. Too often and I think Regina even said this, that we think all about us and our data and the portfolios and what we're going to say. We don't think enough about the audience, our client. Think about them. Who are they? What's going on? Has their risk analysis changed? Are there different family dynamics going on? Continue to think more about them and change how you approach them. And what that does, that leads very well into what we call a point of view. And that's really the big picture. Where do you want to take them? The way I describe a point of view is it's the biggest change in how you want your audience to think or act. What is it that you want? And what that does is that gets them in. That pulls them in, and it makes them actually want to do something, which hold them accountable, lead them to that action. What is it you want them to do? Make it timed. This week, next month. And then you can never forget, of course, the benefits. What's in it for them? And if you can't think of benefits, you're going to have a tough time influencing. Try this before your next call, your next meeting, your next opportunity. I promise you, it will change how you think about it, where you go, and the results that you get. But it can't just be data. It can't just be logic. I love this quote. Logic makes you think. Emotion makes you act. And it's absolutely true. We got to get out these emotion and pull that emotion in our clients and who we speak to. And the best way I think to get there is through what we call SHARPS. This is simply an acronym that you can read through. But I will say that I think stories are by far the most powerful of all of them. And you all have stories, and I've been hearing them all week. I got to work with some MDR associates earlier in the week, and just to hear the impact they've made with tragedies within families and the solutions you brought forward. Widows that didn't know their husbands had worked something out. These are powerful, and that's what pulls people in. Get SHARPS involved in your everyday messaging. To close up, I want to end with building trust in ourselves. What do we do? Where do we go from here? These are some good ideas, good thoughts, good things to think about, but let's be practical. How do you stay in this process? There's a great American actor named Will Rogers. He uses this quote. Even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. I don't think you're just sitting there. If you're at this meeting right now, MDRT is known to raise the level, to make yourself better, to learn from each other, to never be complacent. But here's the thing. You all have habits in your communications. What are your habits? This is where you got to start to work on it. And you got to get feedback. You got to know what you're doing. And there's 3 types of feedback. First one is people feedback. We call this a 3x3. Within Decker, this is what we use. There are always good things happening, but there are always things to improve. I want to make sure I quote Mickey correctly. She used a quote of, when student is ready, teacher will appear. I love that quote because that's what I'm describing. We need to be ready. I'm still a student in communications. I've asked the 20 or so MDRT associates that I got to work with, I want a 3x3, 3 keepers, 3 improvements after this talk. So they should be in the audience scribbling down what I'm doing, good and bad. But it's free, it's easy. In addition to people feedback, secondly is audio feedback. Listen to your voice, record yourself. And then lastly, and probably most powerfully, is video. See yourself on video. That way you can see the entire experience of what you're putting forward. The visual, the vocal, and what the audience experiences. There's one last type of feedback that I've just learned recently. And I'm going to show you a clip because Ben Zander, he's a globally known composer. He shares a different way to get feedback. Take a look at this clip.
I had an amazing experience. I was 45 years old. I'd been conducting for 20 years. And I suddenly had a realization. The conductor of an orchestra doesn't make a sound. My picture appears on the front of the CD. But the conductor doesn't make a sound. He depends for his power on his ability to make other people powerful. And that changed everything for me. It was totally life-changing. People in my orchestra came up to me and said, "Ben, what happened?" That's what happened. I realized my job was to awaken possibility in other people. And of course I wanted to know whether I was doing that. And you know how you find out? You look at their eyes. If their eyes are shining, you know you're doing it. You could light up a village with this guy's eyes. Right, so if the eyes are shining, you know you're doing it. If the eyes are not shining, you get to ask a question. And this is the question. Who am I being that my players' eyes are not shining? We can do that with our children too. Who am I being that my children's eyes are not shining?
Communicating is a contact sport. You have got to connect to make an impact. Get feedback. Be aware of your habits. And then start to make those changes. And my hope is as you leave this, that your colleagues' eyes shine brighter. That your clients' eyes shine brighter. Even your family's eyes shine brighter. Thank you.